Hi, this is Mark Wiltshire, and thanks for choosing to listen to the Explore Finland radio show. Season 3 starts here, and I'm really pleased to kick it off with my conversation with Kristina Vänni, my first American Finn, and I know there are many more of you American Finns out there, hopefully listening to this. So this episode should be interesting to you, as we're going to talk about her forthcoming cookbook, Homefarm. But I'll let her tell you all about that in the interview, so let's head over there now and listen to that. Okay, I'm joined today by Kristina Vänni, internationally recognised culinary authority, food writer, TV host, recipe developer and cooking contest expert. See, I've read your press. So Kristina, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. This is fun.
And you're currently writing your first cookbook exploring traditional and seasonal food from Finland, which is interesting. I'm going to get you to tell everyone why Finland in a moment.
Okay.
Before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Mate. Mate, this should be interesting to you. You contacted me on Twitter and said that as well as being interested in underground Finnish movies and music, you also love food, especially bread. So Mate, this one's for you. Kristina, thank you again for joining us
today.
Thank
you.
I gave your one sentence introduction, but maybe you can just introduce yourself a little bit more to the listener and explain how we came to be talking today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in the United States, in Chicago, and I have sort of had a passion for cooking my whole life. I learned how to cook from my mom, and so it's always been something that's been a part of my life. And on my dad's side, his side of the family is from Finland, from this region. And so a couple years back, we were all here visiting. And so we were over on the farm and we sat down to afternoon coffee. And one of my cousins, Lena, had made, of course, beautiful foods to go with coffee. And we had some of these cookies that she called slice cookies. And we all just went, this was the best cookie I've ever had in my whole life. And we were just, oh my gosh, we need the recipe. So we translated the recipe and then I put it into American measurements, went home and made it, gave it to my friends, and everyone was just like, this is the best cookie I've ever tasted. And then I started realizing that, all of these beautiful foods that we were experiencing here, it needs to be shared. People need to know about this because people don't know. And it's simple and it's clean and it's beautiful, and a lot of the recipes have so much history. So then I figured, okay, well, from my dad's side, I have this connection to Finland, and from my mom's side, I have culinary experience and passion. So let's put those two together and write down some of these recipes in English that maybe haven't been shared before.
You said your dad's family were from this area. We're in Seinäjoki today, but your roots go even a little bit further into the wilds, out to Peräseinäjoki.
Yes.
Can you tell us the story of how your dad's family came from Finland to be in America?
Yes. So my great grandma was one of, was it 10 or 11 kids? 12 kids. Yeah. Okay. So she was one of 12 kids. This was back in late 1800s, early 1900s. I think she just realized that there wasn't going to be any opportunities for her. She wasn't going to inherit the farm, and so
because back in those days, it was the firstborn that inherited everything, and the rest were left to.
Yeah, and so I guess she just thought, well, what am I going to do? So she and her sister. So my great grandma was Josefiina, and her sister Gustava. They said, hey, let's go to the United States. And I mean, if you look at a lot of the immigration history, through Ellis Island and a lot of, the immigrant stories in the U.S., I feel like I always grew up hearing, the man of the house or a young boy would follow the dream in America and then, bring his family later. So I always thought it was kind of cool that it was like two women who were like, we're going to do this, And so then they settled in the U.S.
Where did they settle?
So Josefiina settled in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is the highest concentration of Finnish Americans.
Yeah, I've got a lot of listeners and people that follow me on social media have got in contact from that area, and I've got friends here in Seinäjoki who are American Finns from there that have moved back
Ah, interesting.
Now, yeah. So,
so the small town is sort of near Marquette. It's a small town called Negaunee, and that's where she ended up. Had a family there, and then
what about the other sister?
It's funny. We've tried to sort of trace. It's a bit mysterious what happened to the Gustava side. I don't know why we can't trace it as well. It's a bit of a mystery.
How come they travelled that far together and then separated?
I have no
somehow?
idea. I mean, we found a couple of people on Facebook, but I mean, I don't know them well or anything. So so if you're related to Gustava, please reach out at Kristina Vänni.
Yeah, do that. Let us know for sure. That would be great.
I'd like to have more cousins in the U.S. So so that's kind of how it all happened.
And that emigration was such a big thing. Actually, I did two podcast episodes in Peräseinäjoki. Mm-hmm. There's the Emigrant Museum there.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I spent a whole afternoon going around the museum, and then we went to the outdoor area where they're moving houses from
immigrant
went over there.
Finns. Yes.
When I visited 2 years ago, there were 3 houses, but plans to bring more. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a really cool project, and it's interesting to be able to walk through this history from way back when. So you started by saying when you came back to the family farm, but what led you to want to come back? How did you start investigating?
Well, it's sort of a lot of different pieces that came together, but it was something that growing up, we always knew these stories of the Finnish heritage and everything, and why? I mean, I guess essentially it's a story also of the internet, really, because my older family members, they would write letters, and we have, histories of those letters back and forth. But travel, back and forth wasn't as easy, back in the day. And so I think, it just, nobody, once they came to the U.S., they just never came back because I think it was just too expensive, too difficult. And then, how many years ago would this have been? Maybe, I don't know, 7 or so. The house that we're in, Yoni, he was doing some research online and found one of my other cousins, because he knew of this connection in Negaunee. And so I think, doing the different searches on Facebook and stuff, he found one of my cousins, and she had her maiden name, in parentheses on Facebook. So we went, okay, I think this might be the right person. Sent a message to her, and then we realized, okay, we've got it. This is the correct connection. And then just started conversations, and then somehow, he found me, my sister, everything. So the reason that we're staying in Yoni's house right now is that he is in the U.S. because he travels back and forth to the U.S. with his business. And so, and he would, to go to Wisconsin, he would fly through Chicago, and that's where my parents live. So we would have, meetups in Chicago, and then eventually I said, hey, can I come see you out there? And so it's a story of, letters, lots of, space in between, and then the internet brought everybody together in a much quicker way. So
how was that first meeting with your relatives that you couldn't communicate with? Some of them clearly you could, because Yoni's quite international, but
yes.
But others in the family didn't have the English skills.
I think it's twofold. I think on one point you definitely have to rely on assistance and translations and things like that. But even my mom, who doesn't speak Finnish at all, she loves Lena so much, and I feel like they can talk to each other through food, or just through just sort of that international kitchen communications, that you can still, there's other ways to communicate besides just words. And so I think that you rely on that a little bit more, and then the few words you do know, you use them when you can. And so I think that I felt an instant connection, that even if the language wasn't there was other things there.
Did you feel a family connection?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I even remember your dad saying one time, that there was these 12 kids, and 2 went away, and there's always been kind of this little missing puzzle piece, and now it's kind of been put back into the
nice way to
into the whole piece. Yeah,
and that's not my dad that you're talking about. There are other people in the room.
Sorry.
Here, so
I realized that was confusing.
My dad is in London. He'll probably be listening to this, so don't worry, Dad. There's nothing for you to that you need to know. And obviously in the States, you've got a profile. You do some TV work, and you're now publishing your first book. But you came here, and I guess nobody knew about this really. This wasn't part of the Kristina that was coming back to the family ancestral home. Mm-hmm. It was just on the level of like the prodigal cousin.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, I guess so. In the U.S., if we're just looking at sort of the food industry overall, that it's almost like you have to find some sort of niche in the culinary industry that you're going to focus on and sort of be known for. So, I mean, I've done a lot of different, food related things. And this was always something I'm like, you know what? I got this in my back pocket that hasn't really been talked about that much, hasn't really been explored. And maybe that'd be something that would be kind of interesting to tap into. And then on top of that, there's been, a bit of a new Nordic trend hitting the world, something that people are talking about a lot in the U.S. And I thought maybe this is the time to sort of strike while the iron's hot and explore that a little bit. Because, you'll see, people ask me all the time, oh, what is Finnish food? Like maybe they've had meatballs at IKEA, or maybe they've like heard of Noma, and they're like, so I know like a little bit of Swedish, maybe a little bit of Danish food, but like what's Finnish food? And so I thought, okay, well, if that's a question that keeps coming up, like maybe someone needs to answer that. And so that's where it came from.
I think there's a lot of warm feeling towards Finland as well. Before when we were talking earlier, I said that when you do something, you show an interest in Finland, then the Finns really appreciate it. But I also think they don't necessarily realise how Finland is perceived overseas and how warmly people think, especially the expat families or the expat families like yours that have been overseas for many decades, still have this really strong connection back to Finland. So I think that will be there will be a lot of interest in what you're doing. Yeah, I think so. Maybe you should tell us a little bit about this cookbook.
Sure.
Clearly, it started around the kitchen table in the farm. Perhaps tell us a little bit about the farm first of all, and then about what where you've gone to find your recipes.
Yeah, so it's an organic dairy farm. So you'll see a lot of recipes incorporating dairy, obviously. And so kind of the process has been really a lot. I mean, I've been joking that like this is going to be the first cookbook written via WhatsApp, because I will send a message to Marja-Liisa and say, I'm thinking about gooseberries. What recipes do you guys know about gooseberries? And she'll be like, one moment. And all of a sudden I'll have, 2 versions of a gooseberry pie. And then I'll have to go hunt down gooseberries in New York City, translate the measurements into US measurements, put it in our size pie pan, go from Celsius to Fahrenheit, all this kind of stuff, and, give it a try in my, New York City kitchen. And, we have essentially a year and a half of messages like that, from anything from some of the most, traditional, sort of classic recipes, all the way up to, oh, I want to learn about some sort of new berry. What can we do there? Something like that. So that's sort of been the development. And, we'll go to the farm and sort of look through some of the old cookbooks. I mean, we were looking at one the other day that's literally held together by tape.
Yeah.
There isn't a cover anymore. You got to carefully turn the pages. And, and sometimes like I'll take a picture of a book and then I'll put it in Google Translate and like put the image in there and try and figure out what the recipe is. I mean, I love going to the grocery. I feel like Finnish grocery stores are the greatest thing in the entire world. Like I love Prisma and City Market. You guys can reach out to me. I love it.
Tell us why.
Well, first of all, it's like, we're used to large, huge grocery stores in the U.S., and you don't see that a lot in Europe. If you go to Italy and there's like the tiny little, just the meat shop and the cheese shop. But here you've got these giant grocery stores, and it's like, I can get Marimekko towels. I can get, berries, and I can get shoes. Like, that's the greatest thing ever.
and hardware as well. You can kind of build your own sauna. It's from the same shop.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just think the grocery stores are really cool, and the products are really beautiful. And so, wait, where was I going with this? So I like to I'll pick up some of the different food magazines because I think they produce really beautiful magazines here. And so sometimes I'll just get ideas like, maybe they do their food styling a little differently here. So I'll get an idea like, maybe that's something, I can think about for a photo shoot. Or, look at that, this is an interesting, food trend that's happening here. And so that might spark an idea as well. So I think ideas just come from sort of all different places, but always just coming back to the roots of seasonal ingredients, traditional recipes, but making sure that, because nobody really wants to eat like they're from the 1800s, So I wanted to sort of take those ideas and make them fit our palate today, but still staying true to the roots of the dishes.
Have you picked up on the kind of food industry and the agricultural industry of this area? It's quite an important aspect of Etelä Pohjanmaa, South Ostrobothnia, where we are now. Yeah,
because this is a bit of sort of the breadbasket of all of Finland. Yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of great resources. On one hand, you can just walk into the forest and, we've had half of our ingredients coming from there to begin with.
I love doing that. It's one of those those things that like Satu, my girlfriend, she'll say, I don't want to go foraging in the forest. I did that for 12 years when I was a kid. I had to. I don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
And then last autumn, we went out and everyone had a great time. So, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
For me, coming from London, okay, we have open spaces and trees, but you don't really go foraging.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is a real treat.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of funny that last year we did some foraging stuff in the spring, and I was just learning about all these different wild herbs and this and that, and we brought them back to the farm, and to a lot of people it's just weeds. I think it's cool stuff, and they were like, what did you bring, you moron? Like, you have all these weeds and you're going to try and do something with, and we had like a big basket of mushrooms and all this kind of stuff. So, but I think it's fascinating. That's where a lot of the good the good stories and stuff come from is looking back at some of those ingredients.
There's been this, trend in recent years for these meat substitute products such as pulled oats and harkis. It's made from, I think, broad beans that they extract this protein from, and they were actually developed in this area, very close to where we are now.
I think that's something that my cousin Joni said one time, was that with the Finnish food production, being a small country, they'll never make a mark in a size standpoint, because larger countries, larger productions will be able to sort of take care of a volume. So it seems that Finns have always focused on innovation when it comes to food production, things like that. So that seems to make sense that's where these kind of ideas would be coming from.
Yeah, there's a organisation here called Food West, which is all about food science and developing these new concepts, and it's just here in Seinäjoki as well. So,
very cool.
And I guess the option is not to develop these and export the products necessarily, but maybe export the process and license it so this can be made around the world and it can still have a benefit for Finland.
I learned recently, I was actually doing an unrelated food job back in New York with a company called Lactate, which is lactose-free milk. And then I found out it was Valio that developed the technology to remove the enzyme from milk. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. Americans just think like, oh, that's our own product. We came up with it. Nope. The Finns did.
No, it's true. As you say, the science and the development,
so that's pretty cool.
Development stage. So you've told us about the farm. You've told us about the cookbook. What about your favourite Finnish recipes, your favourite Finnish dishes? Gosh,
it's so hard to of course I always go back to the sliced cookies, because that's sort of like where everything began, was with these cookies.
What are these sliced cookies? What's the name in Finnish?
Oh, I have it written down. It's the word for sliced cookies.
Viipale pikkuleivät.
Okay.
Viipale pikkuleivät.
Yeah. So that's where it all started.
Yeah,
that
and
was
so
the light bulb moment.
Yeah, and actually we just shot a photo of those like 2 days ago because I want to sort of have that be one of the opening recipes of the cookbook, and so we've been snacking on them all week now. So I mean, that's definitely a favorite. Mustika pieraka is a favorite. Especially if you get to go, gather the berries yourself. It tastes extra good. I mean, rye bread is one of my favorites. Once I got the recipe for making Finnish rye bread, I mean, I'll make it maybe once a month, once every couple of months, in my apartment in New York, and just keep it in the refrigerator. And I sort of have because you can't buy that in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's impossible to get this style of rye bread. And so, I'll just make that and kind of live off of it for a while.
These are all the sweet treats that, like you said at the beginning, you all sat around the table having coffee.
Yeah.
I've had, when we were living in London, coming back to visit the family in this area, we had one day where we had 3 of those, 3 invitations in one day, and you go around and there's this spread of sweet treats and coffee and candy and home baked things. By the end of the day, I felt so ill. I was so full of all this good stuff.
But you went to bed happy.
I eventually.
Yeah.
You can't say no because it's impolite, and you can't say no because you don't want to say no.
Oh, I know.
Want to get all this
Absolutely. Well, and that's actually the focus of this trip right now, and the photo shoots that we're doing is because we've been back and forth several times now, different seasons, and this particular time we're focusing on the coffee table and the everything that goes with it, and so we're doing a photo shoot of the 7 sorts to have the best 7 dishes to have with coffee. And so we've been doing a couple each day, and then at the end of the end of our time here, we're going to do the full table with everything all set up and some coffee and because I think that's something that it's an interesting cultural note that there's this idea of sitting down to coffee and having all of these delicious foods with it, and what are these dishes and what's the choice of the different varieties, some sweet, some salty, some cheese, different textures, different flavors. And so actually we had a lot of back and forth via WhatsApp trying to decide, okay, what are the best 7 sorts.
and I hope you have the is it cottijusto, the cheese with the cloudberry jam?
Oh yeah, we just photographed that yesterday.
Yeah. Then I approve. As long as that's on your table. Then
absolutely, yeah.
You just said something interesting that I noticed all those years ago when I first started coming here regularly. In the UK, someone offers you coffee or tea, and they bring it to you. You sit on the sofa, you drink it just there. In Finland, someone says, "Do you want coffee?" "Oh yes, please." And then
it's a 3-hour meal.
Well, 10 minutes. Yeah, but 10 minutes later, you get a call. Come and have coffee.
Yeah,
the table's been set.
Yeah,
and you sit there and drink the coffee, and it kind of brings. If there's a big family there, they may be in different parts of the house, but they all come together for that 15 minutes of coffee.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something interesting I've noticed about Finnish dishes, and sort of going on what you're saying is that you think, how does 15 minutes later, how do you get this spread? Like, what magic did you do to have this already? And what I found is, which is different than other cuisines when you look at it, so many Finnish dishes, they freeze well. So you can have an arsenal of cookies hidden in your freezer, and then boom, they hit the table, and you go, wait, how did you just bake these? And so I think that everybody sort of has some of these dishes ready to go at a moment's notice to be, this lovely hostess quickly. And so, and then maybe you only have to bake 1 or 2 things fresh, and then you have all these other things ready to go. But I found that over and over and over again is there's a beautiful sort of practicality to a lot of the dishes that maybe it comes together quickly for a dinner, or it's something you can prepare in advance. It's something you can take out of the freezer. And then these are things that busy American moms are looking for all the time, and yet that's something that people have been. Some of these dishes people have been doing for hundreds of years. So I think I kind of love that idea of the practicality of some of these things that, you don't see in other cultural dishes. So I think it's kind of
finding one of those dishes that you bake in the oven. So it takes some prepreparation, but you bake it and it's ready.
Exactly.
And then you can freeze it afterwards, and it comes out again another day.
Yeah, hearty soups and stews lend itself well to that. That the flavors will just sort of develop throughout the day, or it's easy to reheat the next day, things like that. So I think that's nice.
And so we've talked about your favourite treats.
Yeah.
What about actual bigger meals? What kind of dishes have you found that you particularly go back to?
I mean, anything with fish. I love fish. So anything with salmon, I really love. We have like a smoked salmon pie that's really great. I really, I loved learning about cooking makara over the sauna rocks, because that's just, I mean, when you can take a sauna and have food afterward, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I must say that the women that have been in my life over the years, the idea of cooking makara indoors in their sauna, no way.
No.
You're not taking a greasy sausage in my sauna. End of.
I think that sounds like the best thing ever. Like, you get out feeling refreshed and smelling like meat. It's great.
I hope...
Is that weird?
Does
everyone think I'm weird now?
Only a little bit. I'm backing away slightly.
It's fun.
Maybe
it's the novelty of it.
I think it's on my Instagram still. I found this device in a store a couple of years ago, and it's like a ceramic tube that you put your makara inside, and then put that on the rocks so that you can be...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess so. Only in Finland. I think #only in Finland.
Do you think I'll get stopped at security if I try to take that back with me to the US?
You'll be okay. I think you'll be okay. What about some places that you found to eat around here? There are. I think the kind of culture of cuisine is improving all the time around here.
Honestly, I have not gone out to eat in this area much at all, because we're always eating at the farm.
Okay.
I've gone to more restaurants in Helsinki, which I think it's really interesting so I really can only speak to the restaurant scene in Helsinki, but I think it's really interesting that I've seen that restaurant scene change even in the last 4 or 5 years, dramatically. And I think it's become a lot more interesting. I mean, even just for quick lunch places, there's a lot of ethnic restaurants are opening up. I went with my cousins for lunch to a falafel place, and it was amazing. I thought, how did I just have good falafel in Helsinki? That's wild, But then even some of the Michelin star restaurants, they're doing some really interesting stuff, and they're using a lot of the same ingredients that we're using up here, but just kind of taking it with a spin in more of a fine cuisine point of view versus a traditional point of view. But this idea of using these natural ingredients that are nearby in a million different ways, I think is absolutely fascinating. It's really cool.
I have to recommend and give a shout out to Juorella here in Seinäjoki. Mia and Jani, who own Juorella, have become friends. It's where Satu and I go for birthdays and things.
Oh, nice.
It's fine dining, and Mia was on the podcast back in episode 27, and talking about Finnish food, talking about Finnish Christmas food as well. But they often go out collecting ingredients from the forest that they then serve in the restaurant. She explained also that they get customers that have been collecting berries or whatever, and actually deliver them to the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
As giving something back. So if you've got an evening, it's well worth it. Mia will look after you.
Oh, that sounds great.
After here today, after this recording, I'll introduce you and online, and
nice.
See
very, very cool.
see what you make of that.
Yeah.
But there even the lunch places where you expect to spend €8.50 to €10 for lunch. Even the range of food here, just in Seinäjoki itself, is improving all the time. There's a Nepalese restaurant and a Greek style restaurant, and many different Asian restaurants, and a sushi restaurant that's opened up just this year, and has doubled its size already. So there is this interest in cuisine from overseas, as well as what Juorella and I guess the other place is also Malas Karbakka in town. It's kind of indoor street food. It interests me. It interests me where restaurants
advertise street food that you go inside and eat at a table. But at Karbakka, that's well worth checking out. And
Nice.
sort of,
Well, I feel like there's just, at your fingertips here, you have such incredible ingredients to work with that, just the fact that you can just go into the forest and just get lingonberries or just, go there and collect some chanterelles. Like the price I have to pay in New York City for those ingredients. And I'm like, and I say this every time I go to the farmer's market in New York, and they always look at me like, shut up, lady. I'm like, do you know that this is free? And I'm paying $45 for these mushrooms. And they're like, we don't care. Just give me your money. But like, it's just so funny that you have like these beautiful things that you can just get for free. It's like, how can you not utilize them?
because all the Finns have been forced to do it when they were children, and now they're bored with it and they just want to go and pick it up from the supermarket.
Well, the rest of us find it fascinating.
Yes, we do. I think that's probably a good place to start. Thank you for joining us today. If people want to follow what you're doing with the Homefarm cookbook, where should they go?
So we've set up a website that sort of has been documenting the process of creating the cookbook. So if you go to homefarmlife.com, and then we also have social media that goes with the website. So we're on Facebook at Home Farm Life, on Instagram at Home Farm Life, and we're always posting different stories, photos, just because I think that not only is it about the final product of the cookbook, but it's about everything that happens along the way. So start following along now, and then can see the whole process come together.
And when do you think the book will be ready? Do you have a target yet?
I guess as soon as it's done.
Okay, well that's no pressure then, is there? No pressure for deadlines. Okay, I'm gonna start following. I suggest everyone else starts following, and especially those American Finns that are listening to the show today. Keep your eyes open and check it out when it comes out.
Excellent, that would be great.
Kristina, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Kristina one more time for a fun interview. Be sure to follow her online to keep up to date with the book as it comes close to publication. If you enjoy the Explore Finland radio show and want to show your support, then please take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or your podcast player of choice. This will help raise the profile of the show. Connect with me on Facebook, where I'm most active, but also on Twitter, Instagram, or via the website, explorefinlandpodcast.com. On the subject of social media, thanks again to Mate on Twitter for his topic suggestion, and I think the next episode, which is coming in a couple of weeks, will also be interesting for you, Mate, and other people that have an interest in Finnish food. Of course, you could also spread the word to your friends on your social network of choice. Let them know about the show, invite them to explore Finland with us. And if you want more from me in between shows, check out the website, where you'll find back episodes, photo blogs of my road trips around Pohjanmaa and Etelä Pohjanmaa. And you'll also find my other show, the Finnish Football Show, and hi to Mark and Rich, my co-hosts of the Finnish Football Show. And if that's not enough, I've also got a regular blog on visitseinäjoki.fi. Finally, if there's a subject you want me to cover in a future episode, you can contact me via the website or on social media. I'll be very happy to hear from you. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Explore Finland radio show. Bye-bye.